Tutor. I'm here to talk about globalization. I know you guys just learned about it, but we're going to do even more. You guys are going to learn so much more in-depth things. So, learning objectives, we're going to talk about how technologies created a parity and an imbalance in the global marketplace. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the future of a global marketplace is going to be because of globalization. And just so you guys know, if you don't realize, globalization affects every part of your day. Everything you ever eat, drink, your culture, what you wear, it all is because of globalization. So you can think globalization. Some terms I want you guys to know is globalization, obviously, since that's the topic of today. It's the distribution of goods and services worldwide, with consumer goods eventually becoming universally accepted and homogeneous. Economy, it's the wealth and resources of a country or region, especially in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services. Nowadays, we're starting to think of economy as more of a worldwide view instead of just off each individual city, country, things like that. Global perspective, it's a type of ethics. It entails the challenging of materialism and commercialism and the examination of one's role as a citizen. And consumer terrorism is a variety of activities conducted by individuals or groups whose purpose is to disrupt the marketplace. So these are all things you guys should be aware of, but we're going to take them even more. So the history of globalization, it's more of a new concept, but it's always existed. A lot of people think it's something that just started like recently within the last 50 years, but it's been around forever. Silk Road, for example, was built between China and Eastern Europe. It was for an easier intertrade between empires. Since World War II, trading of goods has increased exponentially. After we went over to Europe and beat up on Hitler and stuff, we learned that there's more economies we need to work with and different things we can work there. So today, there's no single country in the world that has business relations with less than 40 countries. Let that sink in for a little bit, because there's a lot of countries in the world, and none of them only trade within themselves. Okay, so it's a big concept. Why has increased? They've always traded amongst each other, but today there's things like the internet. If you guys have ever ordered, there's one website that we order jerseys from for my house, like football jerseys and baseball jerseys, called AliExpress. You can buy like $20 jerseys over in China. Couldn't do that 50 years ago. You can do that today, which is pretty cool. The ease in travel, people traveling to other countries via plane, boat, whatever it is, and trading amongst those people, and it's really helped increase that. Advanced software programs where we can literally talk to people from other countries and understand what they're saying, and have a good business relation with them because of how easy it is with the software that's been made today. And also online banking. I can, like I was saying, that one website, you can buy jerseys in China. All I have to do is give them my credit card and do online banking. Transaction is done. We don't have to travel to China to buy their jersey anymore. So that's why it's increased a lot recently. There's some pros and cons to globalization, though. I see a lot more pros than cons, but I like business, and it's always good to have more margins. But the pros of it is there's a spread of values and ideas across cultures. Who here has ever been to like a China buffet? I know it's kind of a bad example, but is there a Chinese food, Mexican food, El Drape, right? You guys ever had any food that wasn't from America, right? Everyone here probably has had that. So you can thank globalization for that. There's an increased quality of life, education, and lifespans, even health. In other countries where we outsource jobs, they now have more jobs there, and they start making money there. And there begins a phenomenon where a middle class is being created, a consumption class is being created, where people can now afford things. So they can afford education now because there's jobs in India. They can afford healthcare because they have jobs in other smaller countries that they may not have had those job opportunities before if it wasn't for globalization. And obviously, lifespan is going to increase when you have more health. So one of the articles we read, the average wage of the people from the Asian countries have increased by more than 60% over the course of the last 15 years. And about 30% of the people have moved upward in the social economical scale. So That's all due to having more job opportunities, because now they don't have to like come to America to get a job. They can just open a factory in their country. It's pretty neat. And you can't see the bottom one, but it says increased profits, because now you can, if we put because of minimum wage, in the United States, people have to pay a lot more to have their product made here. If we make it over in China, they may have different laws, so we can make things a lot cheaper over there and ship it here, and you increase your profits there. And also, it says down here, I don't know why I got cut off, but the overall world GDP has increased. So obviously, there's more people in the world, more consumption is going to happen than there was 50 years ago. But the global economy has increased because of globalization. Next are the cons. Unfortunately, there's exploited labor in developing countries. Nike used to get in a lot of trouble with this about 15, 20 years ago, because they would, they're not as bad anymore, but they would put up, they'd manufacture the products in another country, and then they pay the employees nothing, next to nothing, and obviously it's not a good thing, but they could mark their product for whatever they wanted, because they're Nike, and they can do that, and their profit margin would be humongous. So, unfortunately, you do have exploited labor, and also a lot of there's like zero regulation. There needs to probably be more regulation in the future. Next is countries get richer and more efficient, but they're not creating more jobs, they're really paying more. So now they're making these higher profits, but because they're making these higher profits, they're not really creating more jobs, because they're putting in other countries and stuff like that. So they're kind of taking jobs away from like America and making more money because of it. And there's also a growing gap between the leading countries' economies and the developing countries. So right now in America, we're kind of seeing a phenomenon where we're kind of moving towards a service economy instead of making products here in America. They're making in other places, and over here it's all services. And so we're making more money, and while the other countries are still trying to catch up with us. So they're still developing their economy. So another article we read said the financial globalization, technological progress, and greater financial deepening that benefit mainly the income share of the richest 20% of the population. So the richest countries are getting richer, and the poorer countries are just trying to keep up. So there's a growing gap there. All right, I have a guy named Ian Golding. He had a TED Talk on navigating our future, the global economy, see where we're going to go. I want you guys to do, after we're going to have a little discussion on what do you guys think about globalization. What do you think? Is it good, bad? What are your thoughts? So we're going to watch this, see how it goes. There we go. Return. You guys hear everything okay? I guess we'll find out.
The future, as we know, is very unpredictable. The best minds in the best institutions generally get it wrong. This is in technology, this is in the area of politics, where pundits, the CIA, MI6 always get it wrong, and it's clearly in the area of finance, where the institutions established to think about the future, the IMF, the BIS, the Financial Stability Forum, couldn't see what was coming. Over 20,000 economists whose job it is, competitive entry to get there, couldn't see what was happening. Globalization is getting more complex, and this change is getting more rapid. The future will be more unpredictable. Urbanization, integration, coming together leads to a new renaissance. It did this 1,000 years ago. The last 40 years have been extraordinary times. Life expectancy has gone up by about 25 years. It took from the Stone Age to achieve that. Income has gone up for the majority of the world's population, despite the population going up by about 2 billion people over this period. And illiteracy has gone down from a half to about a quarter of people on Earth. A huge opportunity, unleashing of new potential for innovation, for development. But there's an underbelly. There are two Achilles heels of globalization. There's the Achilles heel of growing inequality, those that are left out, those that feel angry, those that are not participating. Globalization has not been inclusive. The second Achilles heel is complexity. a growing fragility, a growing brittleness. What happens in one place very quickly affects everything else. This is systemic risk, systemic shock. We've seen it in the financial crisis, we've seen it in the pandemic flu. It will become virulent, and it's something we have to build resilience again. A lot of this is driven by what's happening on technology. There's been huge leaps. There will be a million-fold improvement in what you can get for the same price in computing by 2030. That's what the experience of the last 20 years has been. It will continue. Our computers, our systems will be as primitive as the Apollos are for today. Our mobile phones are more powerful than the total Apollo space engine. Our mobile phones are more powerful than some of the strongest computers of 20 years ago. So what will this do? It will create huge opportunities in technology. Miniaturization as well. There will be invisible capacity in our bodies, in our brains, and in the air. This is a dust mite on a nano-replicant. This sort of ability to do everything in new ways unleashes potential, not least in the area of medicine. This is a stem cell that we've developed here in Oxford from an embryonic stem cell. We can develop any part of the body. Increasingly over time this will be possible from our own skin, able to replicate parts of the body. Fantastic potential for regenerative medicine. I don't think there'll be a Special Olympics long after 2030 because of this capacity to regenerate parts of the body. But the question is, who will have it? The other major development is going to be in the area of what can happen on genetics. The capacity to create, as this mouse has been genetically modified, something which goes 3 times faster, lasts for 3 times longer, and reproduce, as this mouse can, to the age of our equivalent of 80 years, with using about the same amount of food. But will this only be available for the super rich, for those that can afford it? Are we heading for new eugenics? Will only those that are able to afford it, able to be the super race of the future? So, the big question for us is, how do we manage this technological change? How do we ensure that it creates a more inclusive technology? A technology which means that not only as we grow older, but we can also grow wiser and that we're able to support the populations of the future. One of the most dramatic manifestations of these improvements will be moving from population pyramids to what we might term population coffins. There is unlikely to be a pension or retirement age in 2030. These will be redundant concepts. And this isn't only something of the West. The most dramatic changes will be the skyscraper type of new pyramids that will take place in China and in many other countries. So forget about retirements if you're young, forget about pensions, think about life and where it's going to be going. Of course, migration will become even more important. The war on talent, the need to attract people at all skill ranges, to push us around in our wheelchairs, but also to drive our economies and our innovation will be vital. The employment in the rich countries will go down from about 800 to 700 million of these people. This would imply a massive leap in migration. So the concerns, the xenophobic concerns of today on migration will be turned on their head as we search for people to help us sort out our pensions and our economies in the future. And then the systemic risks. We understand that these will become much more virulent, that what we see today is this interweaving of societies, of systems, fastened by technologies and hastened by just-in-time management systems. Small levels of stock push resilience into other people's responsibility. The collapse in biodiversity, climate change, pandemics, financial crises, these will be the currency that we will think about. And so a new awareness will have to arise of how we deal with these, how we mobilize ourselves in a new way and come together as a community to manage systemic risk. It's going to require innovation. It's going to require an understanding that the glory of globalization could also be its downfall. This could be our best century ever because of the achievements, or it could be our worst. And of course we need to worry about the individuals, particularly the individuals that feel that they've been left out in one way or another. An individual for the first time in the history of humanity will have the capacity by 2030 to destroy the planet, to wreck everything through the creation, for example, of a biopathogen. How do we begin to weave these tapestries together? How do we think about complex systems in new ways? That will be the challenge of the scholars and of all of us engaged in thinking about the future. And the rest of our lives will be in the future. We need to prepare for it now. We need to understand that the governance structure in the world is fossilized. It cannot begin to cope with the challenges that this will bring. We have to develop a new way of managing the planet, collectively, through collective wisdom. We know, and I know from my own experience, that amazing things can happen when individuals and societies come together to change their future. I left South Africa, and 15 years later, after thinking I would never go back, I had the privilege and the honor to work in the government of Nelson Mandela. This was a miracle. We can create miracles collectively in our lifetime. It is vital that we do so. It is vital that the ideas that are nurtured in TED, that the ideas that we think about, look forward and make sure that this will be the most glorious century and not one of eco-disaster and eco-collapse. Thank you.
Sweet. So, you guys heard him talk about a lot about technology and medical advances that are happening because of globalization here. There's a lot of ideas being spread around, but there's also, in 15 years, 2030 is in 15 years, kind of crazy to think about, but people will be able to destroy the world because of all this technology, and and there's a financial impact due to it that goes along with it. But what are some of your guys' thoughts on globalization? Does anyone about throw some things out there? What do you guys think? Is it you like that there's all this globalization going around, that there's all this trade between countries, or or do you see the negative sides where it kind of scares you that that we're destroying the planet in some parts, as the last presentation showed us, or having low wages to certain people in the manufacturing side in other countries? What are your guys' thoughts?
It sounds good because it's doing a lot of good things for a lot of people and advancing our world. But it seems like the better that it gets, or the more pros that there are, the more risk is involved in it. And so it's almost a little scary because it's like, this is good, there are good things coming out of it, but at what cost could that lead to?
Okay.
It sounds kind of like playing with fire.
It's always been there. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's kind of tiptoeing into the next 15, 20 years, trying to see where we're going to go. Right?
I think it's just a responsibility that we have to have. Like, we just have to be mature about it. One thing that has good that in the research and stuff that I did when looking at this, and I didn't think to talk about earlier, was fair trade. I mean, that's giving people in different areas that would normally have nothing. It is giving them an opportunity to make a fair wage, and it's doing something that they're good at, and it's giving worth to people, and it's causing good for people. So I think fair trade is a really neat thing that has come out of globalization.
Where do you guys see kind of the future going? What is something you'd like to see happen out of the future? Like, I know personally, some rule, I think there should be some kind of governance, as he was talking about. But
I think I heard him talking about the Special Olympics might not even be a thing in the future because of technological advancements. I would like to see something like that happen with prosthetic limbs, or even something as far as fixing any kind of mental disabilities or anything like that with technology. I think that would be sweet. Maybe an into Alzheimer's with a chip in your brain that helps you remember things or something like that. That sounds really cool.
This will probably get to be a touchy subject. I don't want to go too far in it, but I kind of think the guy's almost a psychopath, to be honest. But I think sometimes you can go too far on genetically altering people and things and that kind of thing. And I appreciate your response on that with the prosthetic things, but I actually have a nephew that was born without an arm. It's cut off right here. At 7 months old, he would grab his a pool table with my brothers and pull himself up on a pool table. And he's in the 8th grade right now. He caught 3 touchdown passes this year, led the league in rushing, and just is a freak athlete, even though he has 1 arm. And I remember at a very young age, doctors trying to shove a prosthetic arm on him, and they're just like, he's just like, forget it, what do I need that for? This is how I was created at a very young age. So, I don't know, genetically altering people at some point, that's just, there's a good verse that I've lived by that said everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And I don't know, sometimes you go too far.
all right, and that's just some of the science things that happen due to globalization. Jerry.
I just want to interject like Andy. I don't want to go too far in depth, but one of the things that I have seen in my lifetime has been this change. I lived in Thailand, I lived in Europe, I traveled in a lot of different countries, and the differences in cultures I would go from, in Europe, from one culture to another in the 70s and see a distinct difference. I would see a distinct difference in Southeast Asia. And going back there not too long ago, I didn't see it. It was almost like going from Ohio to Kentucky. Yes, there are some differences. The twang is a little stronger in Kentucky, or maybe they do things a little bit differently, but not that much. And I think there's some advantages to that. When I see women being stoned for thinking or speaking, and I think, well, good for you that you tried to do that, and maybe someday that won't happen. But I remember that slave trade when I was a kid, I was really blonde, and being in Thailand, I was a commodity. And being in the service, I had to be with an MP at all times, because otherwise I would have disappeared. So, I see differences now, and that doesn't mean that kind of culture doesn't exist there, but we certainly have westernized a lot of things all over the planet.
Right.
I was going to mention something when she was talking about how the culture is a bad thing, but I didn't say it. But DJ's right. I just read something about the first time it was like 70s. Nixon went to China. It was the first time China opened up in a long time, and the culture from China then in the 70s when Nixon first got there to how much business the U.S. and China does. Their culture from the 70s, just 40 years, the difference from then to now is completely different. I just read an article about it, and it's like mind-blowing how much globalization has changed their culture.
And one of the articles I read, and actually my current event, it was talking about how usually these bigger economies, when they come in and they outsource jobs and they come in and pretty much take over the economy and turn the economy. It really squashes the culture out of that country. You think of like Brazil, that's one example of a culture that's kind of been completely changed because of globalization, or as you were talking about in Europe, because we've gone over there, and McDonald's in France, or it squashes out their culture, which it's just a change, it's an adaptation. The world's always changing, but it's just one effect of globalization. So to kind of end my presentation, I have a little activity for us. How aware are you on the globalization of goods? So I want you guys to do, you guys can just state your tape and count off. That's the best way to do this. No. Just your tables. Right. Just your tables. What I want you guys to do is find anything you can and figure out what country it came from. So shirts, shoes, watches, wallets, beats, where they come from, and make a list of it. Have someone make a list, write it on the board, and let's see how many countries we can get.
This came from not too far. Our bottle was bigger than yours.
Assembled in Honduras,
Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia.
You get a can, like a can. It came out of where computer came from.
Depends on the computer brand you get.
Check the back of your phone.
iPhones don't have it.
iPhones don't.
Some both wear the tag. What does my shirt say?
Made in Indonesia. Mine is like
California and
Maybe yours is made in the USA.
yeah. I don't even have a tag on here. It's probably one of those like built-in like written on there. You know what I mean?
They put it actually inside the phone. It's not product information.
Buy American.
They're so old. I don't think I can. 7, 8. Nope, doesn't say. Just 7, 8.
I had to get this. Kind of broke me.
What do you got, 6? I'm debating whether or not I want to upgrade to this.
Look at you with your nice little screen washcloth.
Clean and everything.
I
use mine for my glasses too.
Well, this is for my glasses.
Yeah. They're so useful. I use it on the TV.
I was just using it
I
on
use
the
it
watch.
in the chocolate milk off my TV. My honey badger throws his comes out of the TV.
I forgot you call your child.
China.
Oh, right.
Where is this? Spade, New York. I had a
Mexico. Otterbox is made in Mexico.
China.
China.
I don't know how to get the case
Does
off
anyone
my
have anything Nike on? Check the shoes. I bet it's Indonesia.
Indonesia.
like shirts from Indonesia.
Under Armour's Chinese. Yeah. Dude, everything I own is pretty much Under Armour.
I got Under Armour socks.
Under Armour hoodie, Under Armour shoes, Under Armour cleats.
I'm a fan of Under Armour. I'm not a big fan of Under Armour. They lost me in junior high when my cleats fell apart in games.
They do make crap shoes. I don't like their shoes.
Yeah, their cleats are terrible. I've only had their cleats.
The soccer cleats are okay. Soccer cleats are fine. Football and
I go
baseball.
with the
I'm wondering how the basketball shoes are.
Under Armour?
He wears basketball shoes. Check where, check your computer. Hey, Jimmy John's is made in America.
These are fast food.
They probably Chinese.
Where's that from?
Vietnam. New Jersey.
Go get your red card.
I didn't get a red card. What's my fault?
So I did a quote on Super Troopers because I said the word in my paper last night, so I quoted it on Facebook. And people are actually
I was honestly surprised that my watch had nothing in it.
Where's your watch from? Does it?
I love Super Troopers.
Wonder if, no, this bag's not gonna say.
they're making it.
They're bringing back all the cats.
Made in Pakistan.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you where this cat's based on.
Made all my bags in China. We finally got a China thing.
The bag is made in the US. We sewed it on ourselves. We had a cop die. You probably heard of it in Malaria 2 years ago.
Ooh, made in the USA.
Kerstetter. James Kerstetter.
I thought that was a lie.
Most of my bags are all from
I was like, yeah, flash out.
Alright,
I remember
we're
exactly
just
where
gonna
I
write
was
them off
when
on the
this happened.
board.
Hilarious.
So, what are some of the countries you guys got here?
Pakistan.
China?
Mexico.
Was it Pakistan?
Pakistan, Indonesia.
Pakistan, Indonesia. What else?
I say that about everybody.
Okay.
Canada.
Canada. Canada.
What was there in Canada?
My good bookie.
Yes.
It's so Mexican.
Honduras.
You betcha.
Oh, I got it.
They don't give you specific.
France.
I remember being really surprised.
Anything else? Malaysia.
You guys go to the U.S.
America, USA.
Yeah, USA one too.
and India.
India.
Saskatchewan.
Anything I missed?
You can make your own.
No, dude, there's a professor here.
Anything I missed?
Jackson.
Nope. All right, cool. So just this, I just wanted you guys to realize everything that you use every single day, everything you buy, most of it's not from America, most of it's from all different places. There are some things from America still, but due to globalization, there's a decent amount of countries up there just for things that you use every single day. Your backpack, your phone, your wallet, things like that. So just want you guys to be aware that everything you buy is from all over. So globalization affects you every single day. So Thank you.
Motivation.